Hello, welcome to Truth and Wellness. We're so glad that you've joined us today. I'm Gail McKenzie and I'm your host. We have with us a very special guest. He's come all the way from Covington, Kentucky. And Chris, you have an amazing story of God's intervention in your life through miracles, something about a surgery table, but I know it doesn't begin then and there. So let's start at the beginning. Can you share with our viewers, where does your story begin?
My story begins a lot of years ago. In 2008, I had seen my relationship with the Lord deteriorate to the point to where I no longer had a love for God. I completely rejected Him and outright told Him I hated Him. I wanted nothing to do with Him anymore. And this had progressed over a period of time. When I challenged God to do something about it, He did do something about it.
Okay, so systematically, you just turned your back on God and just said no more then.
Yes.
That was the end of that. Well, tell us then, when you kind of challenged God or said, I'm done with you, what was the next thing that happened?
In 2008, February 16th, I had taken my stepson to the gym to work out. Prior to us actually working out, I felt this sudden pain in my chest that felt like two bowling balls were in my throat, and I could not get them to come back up. My right leg went totally dead. It had no feeling whatsoever. And I told my stepson, I'll be right back. And I went over to the balcony overlooking the gymnasium floor. I had no idea what was wrong with me physically because I had always been in very good health. I went back over to him. I said, we need to leave. And he said, why? I said, I can't feel my leg and it won't work.
Wow.
And my chest is killing me.
Man.
So I walked down 2 flights of stairs, across the gymnasium floor, out to my car, and I drove home.
You drove home, so, oh my, okay. But you knew something was wrong.
Yes.
And you knew that you needed help. Okay.
Yes.
So you're at home and you're telling your wife that you've got this pain, and so what happens next?
She said, let me finish getting ready, and she did, and we made our way to the hospital.
Wow.
In the van, I could not sit up straight. I had to lay at the bottom of the van, and the pain in my chest on a scale of 1 to 10 was a 12. I could not speak. The pain hurt so bad. I was sweating profusely out of every pore in my body.
So what did you think might be happening? I mean, did you have some thoughts of what might be going on at this time?
It's hard because the pain felt like it was almost like indigestion,
Okay.
but
Okay.
10 times more intense than that.
Okay. Okay.
I had no idea it was heart related because if it was a heart attack, why wasn't I incapacitated?
Right.
I was
right.
still moving and talking normally.
I see. So, and what was let's back up just a little bit. Your occupation then was, you were at the
teacher.
gym. Okay, you were a teacher, all
Yes.
right. But you were working out at the gym when this happened then.
Well, I
And
had
you-
not worked out yet.
Oh, okay, you hadn't even gotten that far then.
Right.
Okay, all right. So you're at home and you told your wife that you're just really feeling bad, you're really hurting. So now what happens?
So I made my way out to the van. I fell to the bottom of the van floor. I could not sit up because my chest was tight as a drum and my abdomen was too. We drove 90 miles an hour to the hospital.
Wow.
And when we got there, an orderly came out with a wheelchair. I sat in the wheelchair but kept sliding out because I was rigid, like a board. I could not sit up. They took me into the emergency room and ran an EKG. My heartbeat was perfectly normal. So in my own mind, I rolled out the fact it was my heart.
Ah,
And then they ran x-rays. Nothing was broken, so there's no explanation as to why the leg was not working.
I see.
They finally took me back to CT scan.
Oh, just to get a little bit better picture of what was going on.
As soon as they ran the dye on me, within 20 seconds, they hit code blue.
Really?
They were yelling,
Wow.
doctor,
Wow.
stat, anesthesiologist, stat, stat,
Okay.
stat.
Okay. So now you know something is not good, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. Okay. And did the doctors tell you anything at that point, or are they just, they're scrambling?
I had not seen a doctor yet.
Okay.
They
All
were
right.
calling doctors down to
Okay.
the area.
All right.
They wheeled me back to the area where I was at before. And a nurse came up to my wife and said, you better let him talk to his kids.
Okay.
And she said, why? And he said, he's not going to make it. And I said, what do
Wow.
you mean I'm not going to make it? He said, you should be dead right now. You have no blood flow to your legs, arms, or brain.
Wow. So virtually, you were given a death sentence. Pretty
Yes.
much. pretty much. I mean, that's what they didn't expect you to survive.
Right.
Okay, well, tell me then, what was happening to your heart at that time? How did they explain later what was happening?
Dr. Schmelzer was my surgeon, Victor Schmelzer, top heart doctor in the tri-state. He happened to be on duty that night, which was in itself a big answer to the miracle. He came up to me and he said, "Chris, I'll be your surgeon." He said, "You've had a catastrophic failure of your arterial system." I said, "What does that mean, Doc?" He said, "Your arteries from your neck to your hips are blown." He said, "Every one of them are compromised. You have no blood flow at all." And he says, "I don't understand how you're talking to me right now."
Wow. So in other words, what you're saying is your heart was pumping away, but the blood was not going anywhere then, or
Right.
it was just pooling in there then. I mean, it just stayed right there in that
It
cavity.
just packed in there.
Wow.
And as
Wow.
long as there's pressure around the heart and in the heart
Yes.
will continue to pump. It has no idea if the blood's making its way to the extremities or
I
not.
see. So that's why your heart never stopped.
Right.
Wow. Okay. So this is critical. You don't know whether you're going to live or die. So what happened next? They took you into surgery?
Well, I asked Dr. Schmelzer, I said, "How bad is this?" He said, "People don't survive what you have." I said, "So why are you going to operate on me?" He said, "Because you're talking to me right now."
That was a good sign then,
Yeah.
huh? You still were talking. Okay. That's good. That's a good thing.
And I said, "Well, how soon do we have it?" He said, "We need to get you into surgery now." There were a half a dozen surgical people around waiting to get me into surgery immediately.
Wow.
I said, "Can I talk to God?" And he said, "You really need to hurry." I said, "God, if this is my time, do your thing. I deserve what I get." I said, "If it's not my time, then I would appreciate if you made the doctors wrong." And that was my prayer.
So now you've had this diagnosis, kind of, here, quick diagnosis, and virtually you've been told that most people will die with this. He obviously couldn't figure out why you were talking. Sounds like
Right.
he couldn't believe that you were still talking. And so they take you into surgery, and what happened there? Tell us what happened.
When they put the mask over my face, the anesthesiologist told me, he said, "Count backwards from 5. When you get to 3, you will go out." And I did that, and I knew when I got to 4, 3, that would be the end of me. I had no chance of survival. And I knew that in my heart.
Wow, wow.
So that would be the last I would see of anything. And it's a very strange feeling when you face death
Yes.
seconds away and you count your own death down.
Wow. What was there anything that was running through your mind at that time? I mean, what were you thinking about God, or was there anything specific that you remember?
It was very surreal. It was difficult to understand that was it, because I had always been healthy, so I never had health problems going into this. And to suddenly experience
Wow.
this, it's dysmorphic. It's difficult to
Yeah.
grasp it.
Yeah.
So it was hard for me to understand the gravity of the situation. I understood it intellectually,
On a certain level, right.
but internally it was hard for me to accept it.
Right, right. You counted down, you went under, and how long were you in surgery?
When I woke up again, and I'll answer that in a moment.
Oh, okay, all right.
When I woke up again, my eyes could not focus in the room. I did not know where I was at. It was completely pitch black.
But you woke up. So
I thought that I was awake. I didn't really know,
okay.
because I couldn't see a difference between my
Right.
eyes closed or open.
Okay, okay.
And as I looked around the room, I started to see the frame of a window, and then the framework of the door. And then I heard monitors, and it hit me, I survived. And I got very happy inside, but I also got very upset with God.
Ah, okay. All right. Now the story continues, right? Okay.
I was upset with God because I had rejected him outright, completely done with him. So why did he spare me? I could not answer that. Why was I still alive? Why was I still mentally 100%? And I prayed to God very intensely for an answer, and he gave me an answer.
Wow. Okay. So you have come to, you're kind of just getting your bearings where you're at, and now you realize that you've survived, and you didn't think that you would come back after that countdown. Now what happens next with the doctors and with you?
Well, I'll tell you the vision that God had given me
Okay.
to give the answer to my question. As I prayed to God as to why He spared me, He took me in vision. I could see myself in the surgical suite, and I was laying on the table with a tube coming into my subclavian here and two coming out of my abdomen. And Dr. Schmelzer was standing to the right side of my bed with a very worried look on his face. And at the head of my bed stood two beings at least 15 feet tall, because their heads went through the ceiling of the hospital floor above. But I could see through the walls and through the floors of the hospital. And when I saw them, I got a very chilled feeling that they were waiting for me to die.
Okay.
As I continued to look, another being came from the right side of the surgical suite, at least 20 feet tall.
Wow. Okay.
And it moved to the surgical suite edge, and it said in a very melodic voice, "He stays." And as soon as that being said that, the two in the dark robes disappeared and my vision ended. As I came out of my vision, I was crying, but in my vision, I was not.
Okay.
So I was very moved by this. I still didn't have the answer to my question,
Okay.
but I saw a lot of insight that I have never seen before.
Wow.
2 days later, I came out of the medical coma they put me in because they resedated me. I was
Sure.
not supposed to mentally be aware.
Sure. Sure.
And my wife was sitting next to me, and I told her the vision I had had. And she said, "You don't know what happened, do you?" I said, "No." She said, "Dr. Schmelzer operated on you for 9.5 hours, and he could not fix you. He replaced your aorta. It was completely shredded and detached from the heart. He cut it out and put a Dacron tube in and a St. Jude valve. But your tissue was like wet tissue paper. It would not hold stitches."
So now a St. Jude valve, can you explain just a little bit about what it was? It's a valve, an aortic valve replacement then is what he did for you.
Yes.
Okay.
You have different valves. One would be a pig valve or
Okay.
a bovine valve,
Okay.
which is flesh.
Okay.
The St. Jude valve I have is titanium. It will last for 30 to 40 years.
That thing's not going to wear out, is it, for a while?
I hope not. I love to hear the tick.
Okay. Titanium. Wow.
Yes.
You're really put together
And
well.
I haven't put any monitors on alert when I go through airports. I'm good.
Okay. But I think there's part of that story that while you were still kind of under that 9.5 hours, you were in surgery. The doctor comes out. There's how many people there waiting or praying for you, or they're concerned? You said there were quite a few, I believe.
There were over 150 people.
150 people, and the doctor comes out to tell them what? What does he tell them?
He said in surgery he died. His heart stopped because when they opened my chest up, blood literally flowed out onto the floor. They could not suction it quick enough. It was all pulled in my stomach and chest. And as soon as the heart had that release of pressure, it stopped. And they were trying to hook up the heart machine to me,
Right.
bypass machine, and the heart would not come back. So they hit it 3 or 4 times with the paddles. It would not start again. And they were going to call time on me when a nurse said, "Can we try one more time?" And they did, and my heart started.
What was that nurse's name? Do you know? By chance? I think she deserves
She does.
a lot of thanks, doesn't she? Yeah,
She's,
guess
I think,
so.
a woman of faith.
She was a woman of faith. She said one more time, and that one more time was all it took then, and the heart started again.
It started again. They replaced every ounce of blood in my body. I completely bled out. Everything
Wow.
was new blood inside of me. They tried frozen plasma. They tried everything to
Wow.
keep. I was bleeding 30, 40 different places internally, and it was just oozing out of me.
Wow, wow. So what does the doctor do about this then? He goes out and he tells them that your heart had stopped, you had died, but what does he tell them at this point? 9.5 hours. What's the prognosis? What's he going to tell everybody?
People were crying. They were pacing the hallways. People were ordering out food. Everyone packed around the door when he came out, and he said, "I can't fix him. There's no chance for him." And people were upset. And a pastor from the Vineyard Church, Barry Long, said, "Dr. Schmelzer, can I pray with you?" And Dr. Schmelzer said, "I'm Orthodox Jew. I do not believe in prayer of miracles." He said, "That's fine. Can I still pray with you?"
Thank heavens he said that, right? Okay.
And Victor
Wow.
Schmelzer said yes. And he was very gracious about that, because most doctors, when they end a surgery and they are finished, they do not go back. And he said, well, he won't survive 2 open hearts in one night. And everybody said, he's tough enough, he can do it. and you have to. There's no chance otherwise.
So the people there pressed the surgeon,
Yes.
the doctor, to go back in and try again.
Yes.
Fix you. Do whatever it takes. And he did it.
9.5 hours. If you can't get it done there, the
Wow.
next surgery is not going to help.
Wow.
It's not going to help much more.
Right.
But he did go back in, and that's where I saw him in vision. That's where I
Okay.
saw the concerned look on his face.
Okay.
And he opened me back up. He put another stitch around the Dacron tube, and he was just looking at me. He didn't know what to do. I was bleeding everything out. 30, 40 different places around internal organs. He could not plug them. And somebody said they felt a power go through the room, literally move people physically. And when he looked down, he watched my arteries closing up in front of his eyes. And he was not touching me.
Truly. That's what he said.
He
and
saw
that's
it
what they
with
saw.
his own eyes.
Wow. And the nurses that were there too.
Everyone saw it. Suction was there, anesthesiologist was
Wow.
there, and they
Wow.
felt this power go through the room, and it moved them. So it was, it made people cry in the surgery room. And a nurse said, I think the hand of God just moved over him. And he sewed me back up, wired me shut, brought me back out 5.5 hours later.
Wow. That is just, it was a miracle. That's all you can say. It was a miracle.
Oh yeah.
And all of those people were witnesses there. They knew something had happened. So now it appears the bleeding has stopped. What's the next thing that happens?
When he brought me out, people they didn't know what to expect. He said he
Sure.
stopped bleeding in there, and I did not stop it.
So he admitted then to
Oh, yeah.
even all the people when he came out.
Because there's legalities there when it comes to a surgeon, so you had to be careful what he
Okay.
said.
Okay, right.
But he said, I did not stop the bleeding, and he stopped bleeding on his own. And the drainage bag that was there, blood was being pumped into me, and not a drop was coming out. And normally after a surgery, you still have some drainage. Nothing was coming out.
Wow, wow.
And he said, don't get too excited, because he was without blood flow to his brain, arms, and legs for 16 hours. So I don't think you need to get too happy about this.
Yes.
He said he
yes.
may be a vegetable when he wakes up.
So they didn't expect that you were going to be able to even walk or do anything.
Right.
You were going to be a vegetable.
Right.
Basically.
And may not even survive the surgery.
Okay. Okay. Now, you've been told, they've been told this, but something happened that was totally opposite of what the doctor said it was going to be like.
Yeah.
What happened?
When I was able to hear the story from my wife, who told me all the details,
Yes.
I sat up in bed. I said, I'm going to walk. And the nurse said, no, 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 you can't walk. Your legs don't work. I said, yeah, they do. They feel great. And I got up and I walked with my little pole and the IV bag hanging on it. And I ran right into Dr. Schmelzer, who was coming in. He goes, Chris, what are you doing? I said, I'm walking. He goes, why? I said, because I can. He's like, all right, you go ahead and walk. He goes, but be careful. He goes, you shouldn't be using your legs right now. I said, Doc, they feel great. And I walked around and I prayed with everybody in the surgical recovery rooms, because I felt the Spirit of God move me and say, go and witness to those people.
Well, you'd just been through a miracle. And here he was. He pulled you right up off of that surgery table and let you walk. Your mind was clear. What an amazing story.
Well, he's not done yet.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. I think there's more to it. Even okay, what happened then?
Dr. Shaughnessy, he is a kidney specialist, came into my room and said, Chris, we're going to have to start dialysis on you. Your creatinine levels are going up too high,
Okay.
and you're going to become toxic within the next day. Your kidneys have completely atrophied and died. And I said, Doc, you won't need to do that. And he said, what do you mean? I said, God healed me. It's all good. I said, you come back tomorrow with a different prognosis. And he looked at me like I had three eyes. He's like, okay. He goes, I'll be back tomorrow for dialysis. I'm like, all right. So he came back the next morning. They came every morning at 8 o'clock. He said, I've got good news. He said, your kidneys have come back. He goes, they're working now, except your right kidney needs to be shunted. It's not perfusing enough. I said, Doc, you won't need to do that either. He goes, let me guess. God healed you. I said, now you're getting it. And he looked at me and said, you have no idea how lucky you are. I said, no, I understand. This is not luck. This is God's hand. He said, people with half of your damage are bedridden for life and have no functionality in their bodies. And he said, you've had the worst case we've ever seen, and there's nothing wrong with you. He just shook his head. He came back the next morning and said, your right kidney is 100% now. He said, I don't need to see you anymore. And he said, can you come back in 3 months and see me at my office? I said, no, I won't be there. He said, I didn't think you would be.
I think he figured out what kind of man you were at that point, right? And how, okay. So, Chris, tell us the rest of the story. What happened after this? You're healed. It's been a huge miracle. Where are you today? What's happened in your life now?
My spiritual life is different now because I understand God's mercy firsthand. When you go so far to reject God outright and disown Him and separate yourself from Him completely, He still reaches out to you. And there's people out there that are lost. They feel completely lost, whether it's drug addiction, whether it's a bad marriage, whether it's a bad relationship, whether they've done horrible crimes, and they feel God doesn't forgive them for that. He does. And He does reach out to you. That's what I want you to know. He doesn't give up on you. You have that chance. So it's up to you to step forward to God. He's already stepped forward to you. That's what He did in my life, and that's what I want people to know. It alters you and changes you when you see God's love poured out on the most unworthy of people, which was me at the time that happened.
Wow. You certainly have known what the hand of God can do, and what a testimony that is. Now today you are back teaching, I understand.
Yes.
And where do you teach, and what do you teach? Tell us just a little bit about that as we kind of conclude your story here, and let everybody know how God just took your life and brought it right around back to teaching.
6 weeks after my hospital visit with the surgery, I went back into teaching. And people were shocked at that. I've been teaching ever since. Now I teach at an alternative school for troubled kids. Kids that are drug users, drug dealers, kids that have been violent. And those are the kids that I deal with every day.
Okay. And how are you able to witness to them? Because I'm just guessing that you can't keep silent about what God's done in your life. So how do you talk to these kids? You know, we have to be careful, I know, with laws and that kind of thing, but how do you witness?
Well, being a science teacher gives me a chance to talk about my medical past when I deal with the internals of the body.
Oh, great.
So when I talk about the heart and I say, well, you guys don't know this, but I died a few years back from aortic dissection, and they all sit up and listen. And this is the neat thing. 2 years ago, when I told this story to a group of kids, a kid in the back of the class said, Mr. Robison, you know my mom. I said, I don't think I do. He says, no, you know my mom because she was the one that was in that surgery and said, I think the hand of God just moved over him.
Oh my goodness.
And she came in the next day.
Really?
She came up and she hugged me and tears just flowed down her face, and mine too.
Oh, I guess.
And she said, you have no idea. You had no chance. She said, you were dead on that table. She says, I don't even know why the doctor was working on you. She goes, it was a hopeless case. And for some reason, he stayed with it for 9.5 hours. She said, he's not the kind of doctor that has that patience on a hopeless case. Mm-hmm. Maybe 4 hours, he's done, he calls it, and it's over. But for some reason, he stayed there. The man who had no belief in miracles or prayer.
Wow, wow. What an amazing story. And so now these kids get to hear your testimony of how God just He didn't give up on you, did He?
No.
He did not give up on you, yeah. So if there is something that you could tell the viewers once more, why don't you share with them? What would you want to finish with? Just tell them. Just share with them your heart. That great heart that has a titanium valve in it now. That'd be great.
No matter what your situation is in life, no matter how bad it is for you, don't give up on God. He will not give up on you. He'll handle your situation easily. With me, I was very stubborn and very arrogant and very prideful when I challenged God. He's the Almighty. There is no one else but Him. Mm-hmm. So reach out to Him, no matter how bad your situation is. Get on your knees and pray. Stand and pray. Drive and pray. Shower and pray. Just talk to God and ask Him into your heart and your life, and He will meet you. He will give you answers. He will give you direction, and He will give you that shot at heaven that maybe you thought was out of reach. That's what I want you to know.
Wow. Well, Chris, Thank you for sharing these amazing, amazing miracles that God has performed in your life, and you know, the testimony of His great love for you. And also, I want you to know we're going to be praying for you.
Thank you.
As you minister to those children and those teenagers that you see every day. And I hope that you'll join us again. And I also hope that Chris's story will be one of many that you're going to hear and will change your life, and that you too will know God's amazing love for you and the love He has for me and for Chris. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it so much. Thank you. Did you know high blood pressure has been called the silent killer? Imagine having a life-threatening disease that could take your life suddenly without any warning. High blood pressure or hypertension is one of the most widespread health problems of the 21st century. In North America alone, it is estimated that every third adult has hypertension. Many cases can be reversed in a matter of weeks by making simple diet and lifestyle changes. Here are some. Reduce your weight. Reduce salt intake. In that, just banning the salt shaker is not enough. This accounts for only 25% of our sodium intake. The real culprits are the processed and fast foods we eat. Stop smoking is another lifestyle change that results in lowering blood pressure. Avoiding caffeine and alcohol in the diet is another way to lower that high blood pressure. Reduce your intake of high-fat foods, and it will result in lowering your pressure by 10%. Eat an abundance of natural foods like whole grain products, salads, and fresh fruits. Increase your physical exercise and reduce stress. With these few simple changes in lifestyle, you have an excellent chance of reducing your blood pressure to a healthy level and keeping it there. Remember, health is a matter of lifestyle, and lifestyle is a choice, and the choice is yours. Thanks for listening. This has been a Health Moment.